All right, all right, all right, all right. Welcome to another edition of the exhibit, of course, for the NFL 2025 draft. And I said last night that I was going to go live. Of course, this is the exhibit hosted by yours truly, Josina Anderson, after a ton of headlines that emanated and came out of the first round. But before we get to all of that, you know that I have to bring in my esteemed guest for this morning who woke up on the West Coast
Yeah,
after tucking away his kids just for little old Josina Anderson, former Giants
that's right.
running back Rashad Jennings in the building. What's going on?
All right, Joe. How you doing? How you doing? I appreciate that, and that is all true. I tucked them in, woke up
Mm.
early, make sure I can make it.
Well, here's the thing, because I was planning to just sleep in. You know, in my and who is texting me, and I'm a little older these days. I don't have the time to be putting on my makeup and things. I'm just trying to be outside gardening. I have begonias waiting sitting outside right now. Okay, I done
Gonians.
put in my angelonias last night. I put in some verbenas last night. So this is what I'm trying to do. But no, 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 no. You got me up and early. Haven't even had my waffle and my celery juice and my turkey burger this morning. I'm talking to you. Why? Because they have me a little bit just a, a little bit upset, just with things that I saw happen and I didn't appreciate. But before we get into what I have to say, Rashad, please, because I'm a little bit surprised by your take. So I'm going to let you tell America what you thought about your Giants electing to take Abdul Carter with the third pick. And then when your girl told you first on Twitter that the Giants were working to come back into the first round. So y'all want to be talking about things and have comments based on things that I tweeted last night. But who was telling you certain things first? Anyways, when the Giants came back into the first round to get Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart. So go ahead, Rashad. Take the mic away. I'll let you go first.
Okay, then. Well, with that intro, I'm gonna say this first. I think they made the right decision based upon what was on the board. I talked to some people before. If Travis Hunter was available at number 3, take him. If Abdul Carter is available at number 3, take him. We knew it was going to go this order. Cam Ward was going to be off the first board, and we knew the Browns was either going to take Abdul or Travis, leaving the Giants to have one or the other. I think you picked one or the other. They did exactly what I thought and hoped.
Well,
Um,
the Browns actually didn't do that. They
they
traded
traded
to
down, yeah.
the
So
Jaguars
Jacksonville ended
to,
up
to,
taking,
to
which
get Mason Graham, who, by the way, my
shout
new
out to
nickname for
Jacksonville.
Mason Graham is Paul Wall. Because, okay, listen, I knew I saw the flavor in
He was swagged out.
Indianapolis when he had the little temp haircut. And then he was telling me what song he listened to before he comes on the field. It was some Southern rap thing I didn't know about. And then they dropped the picture this morning with him and the sister going to the SBs. But I'm just saying, but that's a whole nother thing. But that Paul Wall. Okay, well, go
Yeah,
ahead.
he
Go ahead.
he he he, he was swagged out. And
He was
shout out to
Mason
Jacksonville.
Graham was swagged out. We okay, go ahead.
Shout out, big shout out to Jacksonville, another one of the
Hmm.
teams I played for. I'm happy they made the right decision too. The reason why I like this pick is because now you're pairing yourself with the best defensive line in the NFL, especially the NFC East, which we all know that's the quickest path to the playoffs. I think they put themselves in a great position because in this draft class, we knew this prior to that in the second round at minimum, you was going to be able to pick up a solid quarterback. We understood that. And so now the
Oh, so
fact that
that's
we
what we're doing. We're going for solid.
no,
The
I'm
Giants
saying
were
like
14 last year. So that's the criteria is we're going for solid. Solid is
so
what progresses you in the postseason. We're going for solid. That's what it
now,
does. That's what we're doing. Keep
now we
going.
got we got to look at it like the housing market, right? Now,
Mm.
what sets the housing market is what the market itself. It's not the value of the house. And this housing market for quarterbacks just isn't prevalently high anyway. So you're
No.
going to find yourself a solid quarterback, develop them. You already have Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston back there ready to back up whoever it is. Or
Based on what though, Rashad? Based on what they say? Because the
but
because the theys have been wrong a lot on evaluations.
no doubt, no doubt.
Okay.
I'm going based upon the tapes. I'm going
Okay.
based upon the tapes. I'm going to base
Mm.
upon the stats, the tapes, who they're playing, expertise, and everything else that goes along with it. You can pick up a decent quarterback in the NFL draft, this class, that will be comparable. It's no different from any other draft class. They said we'll pick up Dak Prescott in the 4th round, a solid quarterback, and look what he turned out to be. They said we'll pick up Russell Wilson, a 3rd round out of Mississippi State, and see what he ended up panning to be. They said we'll pick up a solid
is the
quarterback in the 2nd round, and
measurement being
Jalen Hurts.
So the measurement is being decent. And by the way, Jalen Hurts was a 2nd-round quarterback. Oh, but what did he do? What did he do that last season?
He tushed.
What hardware did he get last year?
Oh, he got that ring, baby.
Oh, okay. I make sure we didn't mess that up. So those teams didn't get Jalen Hurts, and then he went on and won the Super Bowl with the Eagles last year, right? I'm looking over here because the monitor is over here. But he went on and did that, right? So the criteria is not to be decent, right? The criteria is to identify the people, right? And to get the guys. But let me say this. I'm gonna just park it up a little bit.
Jaden was decent.
What?
He was decent coming out.
Okay.
That's why he went in the 2nd round.
What?
He was decent. That's what I'm saying. You can get a decent
but he was
quarterback.
worthy of being a 1st-round pick.
Says who?
Look at what he accomplished. But I know what you were
in
saying
hindsight.
No. That's actually having the right evaluation, being able to have the discernment, picking up on these guys to know who not only is going to have the right skills, but also have the right makeup to be the leader, mesh with the blend and the fabric that you have in the team. This is what you're supposed to be identifying, not what I'm hearing this morning and my phone blowing up and I have to be hearing about, I just think that Shedeur needs to humble himself.
That's silly.
Can I tell you how many calls I have had this morning? Or what else I'm hearing? Having problems with the party that he had last night, or look at how he was acting last night. I saw the speech that he gave at his party last night and came across like a humble gentleman in terms of realizing it didn't go the way that he wanted to, but
right.
The way that he put his spin on it, I actually was impressed by that. I don't have a problem with him picking up a microphone and talking about perfect time. And he's young. Because Rashad, I don't know what you would have been doing if you were driving and having the funds to drive a Maybach and all that stuff when you were in your 20s. I don't even know if I would have been able to reach you above the clouds. So when I put it in that perspective, given all that he does have, I actually think relative to that, he actually is pretty circumspect relative to what he does have at that age. But that's just me. But that's just me. But let me break down and say this. Listen.
We'll agree there, though. We agree there, just so you know, with that part.
So I understand, that Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, they have things on the line this season. And a matter of fact, I'll even say this too, that if I'm in their position, it's like, listen, if I'm on the line, I'm going to go down with my guys, because trust and believe, I understand that Brian Daboll hasn't had his quarterback since he's been there. So I get that. You're going to go with your guy. And then we understand all of the Ole Miss connections, and Rashad, that you were aptly pointing out before we went on, with Ole Miss and the Eli Manning and the Lane Kiffin and the familiarity and all this other stuff. But here's what I'm going to say.
You better get it right.
You better get it right. You better get it right. Because you know what happens? It's always... You got the dapping up and the high fives and all that other stuff, and all that's great in April. But you know what comes after April? Rashad, you know what comes?
You got to play ball.
September and October. And we're all going to be here, okay? Because and here's the other thing that we understand, because the Giants are a blue chip organization, and they have the pedigree, and there are a lot of people in that building that I respect. And y'all know I'm just going to be talking and giving my opinion, so please let's compartmentalize. But what I also understand about that organization is that they have to feel comfortable with the face that they're going to put, on the pamphlet for the season ticket holders, and who you're going to be selling as the foreperson of that corporation.
Right.
And this is why you brought in Russell Wilson, because you feel that's who you feel comfortable with. That's partly, let's not get it twisted, what Russell is there for.
Yeah.
And because this is why you're going to in my opinion, why you're going ahead and unnecessarily naming him, giving the hints that he or forthright saying whatever the verbiage is that he's going to be the starter when we haven't even had competition. Because last time I checked, Rashad, is sports, let's actually have the competition. But you're trying to go ahead and send out the signals that you want to send to the people that buy the tickets. That's fine. But again, like I said, it better work out.
Yeah.
It better work out. And I thought the objective was not only to have, to deal with the now, because I was talking to so I said it on Twitter yesterday. A high level source said it to me yesterday that they knew and anticipated. This is what they're saying, not me, that there were going to be GMs out there doing things that they know is in their best interest for their job. But I
Yeah.
thought the objective was to be, for the most important position, is to get the guy of the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's Jackson Dart.
That's what they believe.
So
Yeah.
if it's Jackson Dart, why are you not taking him at third?
Because you can't miss out on a. So here's the thing. Let me just break this down for you.
But the quarterback position is the most important position,
Yeah,
and
I'm
you
gonna break it down for you.
believe in Jackson Dart, huh?
I'm gonna break it down for you.
Okay,
Here's
please
why.
go ahead, because
This is very simple, folks. Let me break this down. She asked a fair question. I want to answer directly.
Okay.
Abdul Carter is a generational talent. Okay. Travis Hunter is a generational talent, without a dispute. Okay. It doesn't matter who your GM is. It doesn't matter who your head coach is. If you see Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter on your roster, you chilling. Now, if you see a Shedeur or if you see some other guys, you might come in. A GM might be like, we changing this around. So what the Giants did was smart. They picked they picked a Carter, which is a generational talent, and guess what? They had a
With
first
some medical questions.
with a medical question mark that ain't. I
And
mean,
that's just subjectively with some medical questions.
it ain't really that big of a
All that
question.
might work out, because I talked to teams yesterday. They had their examples ready. Well, look at Myles Garrett, he had a foot issue, and look at Eddie Lacy, and he did this and that. And I said, okay, and look at Greg Olsen, and didn't AJ Green deal with some toe foot? And I'm just saying that's all fine.
They were older. They were
Huh?
older when they were dealing. They were older when they were dealing with those things, though.
But the point is that we are still upright mammals, right? You got to walk. You do walk and use your feet, right?
Absolutely.
And so all I'm saying is, we all pray and hope that that's not an issue. But when the pre-existing medical questions were there, they just better not become medical issues during the season. So I'm expecting 17 games there. Okay.
Yeah, no doubt, and as well as we hope all these kids stay healthy. But like the idea, the theology, the theory of it is Abdul Carter's generational talent, and then in the early second round where they were slotted, you can pick up a quarterback without a doubt. They still could pick up Jackson Dart possibly. Then they could still pick up a bunch of other quarterbacks right there. Jalen Moreau, a lot of guys would have been sitting there at the second. And the question
about what they could have done. That's not what let's talk about.
Right, but I'm telling you, I'm trying to show you the theory of why they did what they did. Is they picked up third overall. You picked up the generational talent, and the reason why, you tell me this, the same reason why Pittsburgh Steelers picked up a D tackle instead of picking up Shedeur. You tell me why they did that? Because they evaluate.
And that's a fair point. Let's handle that. That's
talk about my Giants. They got the same tapes.
Don't
They all
just
got the
talk
same
about
tapes.
the Giants today, huh?
They all got the same tapes. Tell me why the Steelers ain't picking. They said, I want to get a D tackle. Because why? You talk about saving your job. Listen, nobody wants to have these kind of discussions, but when we talk about Mike Tomlin, right? We talk about
I had these discussions.
He's going to save his defense because defense is why he has a job.
I didn't actually think that Shedeur was a fit there. The problem is that I put the link out on Twitter. I put the 10-minute clip on Twitter, and then I got the 20-minute discussion on YouTube, and y'all lazy don't click on the link and go look at the whole conversation. So I did talk about, but I can repeat that here. But go ahead, and I'll let you finish. I want you to finish because you are the guest. I'm going to be a hospitable host. Go ahead.
Hospitable host. I appreciate it. But they wanted Jax. They wanted Jax. They thought they was going to be able to get Jax. So I think the conversations end up spewing like this. I think they ended up realizing that, wait a second, if we don't pick Jax Dart right now, I think the Browns are going to pick him tomorrow first, because Shedeur just kept falling down. And so New York was like, nah, No, 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 no. We're gonna go get who we want, who we see, because they thought they were gonna be able to get him. So I'm not even sure if everybody considered that Shedeur will still be on the board right now. You got to think about this whole, like, macroly. It's a lot that goes on. So I think they made the right decision in picking third overall for sure, without a shadow of a doubt. The draft up, the launch to get Jax versus the launch to get Shedeur, or to wait in a second and see what happens. That's where you can speculate. But third overall, they made the right decision, 100%, 1000%.
Well, I still stick to what I said before, that I personally feel that Shadeur's best fit is with New Orleans. Okay, so I'm
Which they
gonna,
didn't pick him.
huh?
Which they didn't
What did you
draft
say?
him either.
I hear that too, and I just had another discussion. I was just on the phone with the agent who, and that person's mind, that they got the best lineman in the draft, and the Saints went in the right direction. But I just, for the people that didn't hear what I said before, I do believe that that is the best fit for him from the standpoint of, I like the fit with head coach Kellen Moore. I like what Kellen Moore did in his first year as offensive coordinator with the Eagles in terms of Jalen Hurts. I believe having, career highs in completion percentage. And I think it was tied for a career high in yards per attempt, and one other, passing yardage, whatever it was. It was a few of those categories that I said. So I like that he has the experience with working with a Jalen Hurts type. And I also like the fact that I do, if I'm thinking about overall best situation for Shedeur in terms of putting him in a market where I do feel like it's a step down in terms of glare, I think that juxtaposition works well for his overall growth. And I do like Olave, and I do like the presence of Brandon Cooks as a veteran wide receiver in terms of being in his ear. And when I think about the Steelers and what's going on there, I don't know all the particulars. I'm just talking about the things that I do know, and also the things that I see. But they got a situation, it appears, going on with George Pickens. I'm following the team. DK Metcalf, you have to ask questions about the Seahawks seeming ready to, just go ahead and move on from that. And hey, great deal for Tory Dandy, great deal for John Schneider, or what have you. I don't know if any other team was going to do that combination in terms of the draft compensation and the actual money package that he got, but good on that. And there are a lot of questions there, particularly with the pressure I feel on the Steelers with the mercurial background that they've had with certain wide receivers that have been there, and that they're trying to get through. And it's a lot of pressure because you're sitting around waiting for a quarterback that has already told you, bruh, I may or may not give you an answer. So I already have to think about what's the judgment on that. So those are the components that are making me just question, if that's the right breeding ground when you talk about having to have a quarterback be matched with the right team, and quarterbacks that have gone to the wrong teams, and it's actually had a profound effect on their career, and then they've left those initial teams and gone on another teams, and then flourished there. So the pairing is definitely important. But what I'm saying, and what I'm hearing this morning, just from people who are talking, and the comments that are getting from high level people around the league, just on the reactions to Shedeur not going, and the reasons for why they're either seemingly happy with that, or that was in line
What are the
with
reasons you're
their
hearing?
thinking.
What for myself too? What are the reasons floating around right now why he didn't get picked?
Just whether they don't feel like his talent in their mind merited the first round pick, whether if they feel like there's concern from just how involved his father would be on things like that. And here's what
Those
I'll
are
say.
fair.
I hear that, and I've definitely heard that a lot. Okay, and I don't fault anybody for being a parent. You know what I'm saying? And also,
Absolutely.
obviously, being wanting to provide it and do the best thing for their kid. And obviously, Dion is in a very, very unique situation relative to not only being a parent to a top NFL prospect, but being the caliber player that he was in his day, and then knowing a lot of these people behind the scenes. So that is a unique circumstance for Dion. I'm not going to fault, Dion for having those connections. Now he's going to, have to think to himself relative to If he would want to reach out again in the future to people, or whether that should be made publicized. And from what I can hear, I'm definitely, at least from my sources, hearing that there's concern of that. What my response to that was, hearing that this morning and other days leading up to the draft, is that I do not believe, okay, that during the season that there is a real risk and concern for that. Okay. Dion is Dion in terms of his character. And by the way, he is an excellent leader for those kids at Colorado. An excellent, example also for Travis Hunter, who was blessed to have his, father in presence last night. So let's not act like we don't understand also the positive impacts, but everybody is human. And they're all things that we have to learn in terms of discernment when we go through certain experiences, and then judging, okay, would we do this or whether we do that? And I'm here to say that I don't think that post-draft that truly would be a concern.
All right, let me give you
in terms
this.
of him helicoptering around and worrying about, this, that, and the third. You know what I'm saying? My response to that again continues to be worry about getting the pick, because some of y'all behind the scenes being happy in this and he needs to be humbled, and you see this and you see that, or what have you. Worry about making sure that your pick is actually going to deliver as to whether you're sending the message, because at the end of the day, your job is not to be sending a message. Let God take care of that. You take care of business in terms of making sure that you have the right player on the field for what you got to do, because we're still going to be here in September, October, and November observing all of that.
Right. Let me try. How about this?
I'm just saying.
Let's consider this. Shedeur Sanders has been a winner everywhere he's went. In high school, he won. At at Jackson State, he won. In Colorado, he won. Great. You remember Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, that combination? And everybody always wondered, saying, who was it? Was it Tom Brady or was it Bill Belichick? And it wasn't until 2019 when there was a split, we found out who it was. And guess what? It was Tom Brady, because Bill Belichick is now coaching at the college level. So why do I even bring that up? Because, yes, Shedeur Sanders is without a doubt a winner. But when you think about third overall pick and your biggest attribute is a winner, you think about this. Well, Deion Sanders was a winner. Every high school he coached, he was winning. At Jackson State, he was winning. At Colorado, he was winning. So now there's a split. Nobody knows who Shedeur Sanders is as a quarterback outside of the leadership of his father. Nobody. You don't. Nobody. Only thing we can do is speculate. Now, what I think is he's going to develop and be a good talent in the NFL. I do think that. I'm cheering for the guy, and I think Deion's is a great parent coaching his son. That's what you're supposed to do. What the heck else are you supposed to do as a parent? I can't get mad at you for putting your son first, making sure they get through college and all this. Great. Applaud. More people need to follow that recipe. But I'm saying to you now, in the world, nobody knows how to put their hat on him yet. Is a chance, is a risk, what most people feel like. And there's okay, he's worthy of the risk. We're at first, third overall, is it worthy? Some can say yes. To me, when Abdul Carter's there, it doesn't make any sense why you would do that. Now we're getting into the second round. Absolutely. He can be first off the board. It's worth, because you cannot miss on your first. Third overall, top 5 cannot miss. You can't. Shedeur is a chance. He's a lottery pick with great percentage that he can win.
Okay, couple things. Let me go back, because I'm trying to, have my mental, as you're going off. Okay, so a couple things. You said we know that Shedeur is a winner. Isn't that the point? Isn't that what you want? He is a winner. Isn't that what they say about Jalen Hurts? He is a winner. Isn't that what you're trying to do, is win?
Absolutely, but you got to think about who the coach was.
Okay, so let's go to the second part.
Kobe was a winner. Jordan was a winner. Who was their coaches? That's one of the biggest things about it. Who was their coach? The same guy. That coach was a winner.
Less of a winner because his coach was his father. What is your point?
That can you do it without that coach, Jordan?
That
can you do
applies
it
to all of these players. They're going to have new coaches from college to the NFL.
Can you do it without Bill Belichick?
How is Shedeur different in that? How is he different in that? They all are going to have new coaches. Hold on. Let's go to your second point. Then you said, we're not sure of what Shedeur is going to be, outside of this, that, and the
Jax
third.
Dart wasn't a winner.
Okay, that is the whole point
He's a
of
baller.
film study. Did all the tapes just get blown up in Mission Impossible? Do we not see what's on the film? And then some of you all are saying, oh well, it was just in this conference, and he just played against that person or what have you. He can't help who the competition is. You either have to be able to identify when somebody has an it factor, because then you say, oh well, he's not athletic, or this is his legs, or what have you. There are a ton of very accomplished athletes who don't come out looking like Mr. Olympia from the trunk down. Okay.
Yeah,
and he shouldn't be downgraded anymore because you don't think he's athletic as he should be, particularly when you're putting it in the lens of how you're evaluating what your expectations are, particularly of an African American athlete. Shedeur can get faster if he even applies himself more in that realm. I'm here to tell you, as somebody who ran track at Carolina and knows how, and also exercise sports science, have my degree certification from the National Association for whatever it is. You can get better in those categories physically if you would like to.
You lost me on the African American part.
I'm just saying that my point when I was saying that is that I don't think he should be downticked anymore relative to whatever your prototype is, or however much athleticism you think should be emanating from an African American athlete. Because there are plenty of quarterbacks who aren't super athletic especially when it comes to running. That's what I'm saying. See, this is what happens when you talk to somebody mentally sharp. I'm on top of your points. I hear you. You know what I mean? And then we were going back to, okay, well, the aspect of we haven't seen him be coached by anybody else. We haven't. All of these kids, Rashad, are getting new coaches. But
none of these kids had the same coach from high school and since Pee Wee. Middle school, high school, college, ain't none of these players ever had the exact same head coach.
So identify what your concern is. So no, but put it out there. So what's your concern? That he's not going to be coachable?
No, my concern ain't about him being coachable. I think he'll be. All kids are coachable. I've never seen a kid that ain't coachable. That's a myth. It's just whether they're going to be able to be coached.
What is the concern? What is the concern?
The concern is one of his biggest attributes. One of his biggest attributes is he is a winner. Okay, got you. Check. Agreed. Now let's go to the books. Why is he a winner?
No, stick with your original point.
This is my original point. You're trying to change my point.
Coach since whoop-diddy-whoop-dee-whoop. So what I'm saying is, as a result of that point, what is your concern?
That the winner is the head coach. So now if I abstract that attribute, now you're standing alone, which is what he's doing for the first time outside of his dad, which I'm not mad at. I'm just simply showing, because you played at a lower level talent with Jackson State, because it was a lower level talent with Colorado, because of those things, there's a concern. Well, he is a winner, but how did he win? Well, damn. Deion Sanders brought in some of the greatest players in college football. He brought in some of the greatest players in college football to play in Colorado. Now, Shedeur is a baller. I mean, do you want to know my point?
Go ahead.
He brought in, Deion Sanders brought in a lot of talent to surround. He helped. There's a lot of things that went into this whole makeup of Colorado. And who did that? Joe Cena? Deion. Deion won in high school with this kid. Deion won in middle school with this kid. He won at Jackson State with this kid. He won in Colorado with this kid. And guess what? Now he ain't with this kid. So what I'm saying to you is there's a question. Was it Tom Brady or was it Bill Belichick? Nobody knew until there was a split. When there was a split, we all, it was Tom Brady. Bill Belichick, you ain't it. So let me ask you this. Who do you think is the reason why they've been winning more? Do you think it's Shedeur Sanders or Deion Sanders is the reason why that combination works?
Now I understand why you're bringing up this point. Are you equating that there is a real question?
I know she didn't answer, but it's all right. Her show.
Are you equating that there is a real question comparable to the questions that came from after Tom Brady and Bill Belichick split, and you're applying that in the same way to Dion and Shedeur Sanders in terms of that level of concern? Like we're that concerned about when Shedeur is detached from his dad as to really where the secret of the sauce is in terms of his ability?
No, I can't get on the detached part because it seems like childish. I'm looking at both of these men. No. That's what you're receiving. What I'm saying is I'm looking at both of these guys as men. And what I'm saying is it the head coach or is it the quarterback combination? Just like we looked at Tom Brady as men. Is it Bill Belichick or is it Tom Brady? We always wondered that. And then we got a chance to see it, Josina, when he left. Tom Brady went on. We understood it was not Bill Belichick that was carrying the whole entire mission. It was more so the guy that went on and won a Super Bowl somewhere else. And what I am saying to you is this: I hope it's both of them. I really do. I really do. I'm cheering. I hope Colorado go ahead and win, and I hope Shedeur go ahead and win. Why? Because that's a great story. I'm here for it. But what I'm saying is, if I am a GM and I have my money on the line, and I'm third overall, and I got Shedeur Sanders as a quarterback when I already got two comparable quarterbacks for right now, and I know I can pick up some in a second. And I got a generational talent. Give me Abdul, and I'll see what happens later. Because I'm not. That's too much uncertainty. The same reason there's. You know why? The Tennessee Titans didn't pick up Shedeur Sanders. And the thing about it is, this is so crazy that it seems like even me that I'm almost hating on Shedeur, not cheering for him. It's just like, yo, people need to take
I'm glad
a
that you
seat.
recognize that. But go
No,
ahead.
because
I'm
it's
done, I'm done, I'm done.
forced.
Go ahead.
It's just like the Jordan and LeBron conversation. When you pick your guy, it almost seems like you're hating on somebody else and not recognizing them as being great as well. It's that, yo, not every person's name should be in the same conversation with people. Shedeur Sanders, give him a chance to get in the league first. He got to get picked. And when he get picked, let that
Why he
man
got to
develop.
get a chance to get in the league and da-da-da-da-da-da? Why does he need to be given a chance? Are you given a chance to the same way that you're saying that to Jackson and Abdul and whoever?
Yes.
Did we not see him have success at Colorado?
Every one of these players have success.
Okay, so did we not see him, make some extraordinary passes? And I can remember. Listen, I didn't watch every game, but I saw him deliver some pretty good plays. And last I checked, those defenders were out there playing their butts off too.
Right? Actually, look, the kid Jennings at SMU. That boy is crazy balling. If he came out right now, you can say the exact same arguments for this kid. He's balling. He's putting up numbers. What else do you want from the kid? He went to the playoffs. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's carrying the team. The same thing for the kid Jennings at SMU. So when the kid from SMU comes out, I want you to be on the same table like you're doing right now for Shedeur. Because this is what's the difference?
Let's talk about who comes out and what we're talking about in terms of wanting that same energy. Let's talk about when Mr. Archie Manning, when the Manning kid comes out next year, because all these little comments and things that are, said, talking about entitled and you come from money and this, that, and the third. I'm going to be watching for the characterization next year. Oh, that's going to be real interesting, because who gets labeled as entitled and who gets labeled as having moxie, is very interesting. And I'm just, okay. I don't want to.
It's the culture. Look, Manning's not. Look, and I have no problem. Just to clarify, I'm explaining away. I'm not shaming away. I'm explaining things.
Oh, well,
like somebody who's rocking. Look, hey, my baby was just born. I still got on the on a little wristband. But if I raise my watch in the camera, right, and I'm stunting and wearing jewelry and all this, I ain't got no problem with it personally. But I'm saying we have to understand. We can't be ignorant to act like we don't understand the optics. If you don't understand the optics, then let's go to a whole different university.
So you can't celebrate? You can't celebrate?
You absolutely
what
can.
What are the optics? What are the optics of holding your watch? Let really explain that to me. What's the optics? What is the optics?
The optics.
Last time I checked, Shedeur Sanders is not involved in any scandal.
I didn't say neither is Jackson Dart or any of these players getting drafted.
I'm saying that as a point to my point. What are the optics of him with his watch and talking about perfect timing? What's the optics?
Oh, so when you So when you talk about the position as a quarterback, even Deion Sanders himself has said, admittedly, that when he's looking for a defensive end, he's actually looking for somebody that comes from a single parent home and all these things, right? And
So
he
is there
said,
any optics when Justin Herbert is having a press conference and he's got long flowing surfer hair? Is there an optic to that? We're not we don't we, Is there optic to that? So
yeah, no,
so
it's,
so
no,
Justin can
nobody's
have his
getting
hair whatever, and of course, obviously, there's not. That's my point. But
right.
Shedeur can't flash his watch. What's the difference?
Hair and jewelry
What
ain't
is
the
the
same.
optic?
I mean, I would understand the comparison if it's like he has his dreads and the other guy got
I'm
his long
saying
hair.
everybody does their flow as to whatever pertains to them. That's my point.
Correct.
I'm not saying hair is the same thing as a watch. What I'm saying is Justin does him and Shedeur does him. And as
Right.
long as it's not, it has anything to do with the criminal record or stopping him from getting a win on Sunday, what is
Right.
the problem? They are in a whole different generation. I wish I was in NIL. Please, I wish I had, where I was in a revenue sport and I was making that type of money. This is a whole
Absolutely.
different situation. Kids are coming out of college as CEOs, managers of their brands, as corporations, business forward, business thinking, looking for ways to be entrepreneurs before they even hit the field on Sunday. So just because they have all those things and they are multi hyphenates, I have a problem with, people that I'm hearing from, and in friendly debate. Obviously, these are my people, these are my sources, or people I talk to. But saying that, he needs to be more humble, and the minute I saw him talk this way, whatever, I have a problem, and then sharing videos from his party last night and say, see this and see that, see what am I seeing? What am I seeing? I'm seeing someone enjoying themselves and having a good time, and still wasn't afraid to have the cameras in their house and still being circumspect. I didn't see nothing scandalous going on. What is the problem?
I personally see this is where we agree. I love how Shador actually handles himself in these interviews.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any problem with a kid celebrating. I like with Michael Parsons. I don't have a problem with him doing a podcast and people getting on. Listen, Shedeur Sanders doesn't come across to me as a kid that needs to be humbled. That's not my stance
Mm-hmm.
at all, not personally. What I'm saying is I can explain why it comes off that way. But you got to remember, I played in the locker room. I come from a culture. I get it. But you ain't, I'm not the one that needs to get it. Do you get that, Josina? So what it
I do,
is
I do, I do understand that. I hate, and let me break this down even a little bit
I
more.
played with Odell Beckham. You think me and him
And
had
I
these
was there the whole
conversations?
time, the whole time, the whole
Yeah.
time. Okay.
Odell locker. So you remember he locker right beside me, Eli, Odell. We have all these. I'm like, Odell, bro, look, do you, baby? But you got
Don't
to
let me
understand
flash
the
back there.
optics.
Don't let me flash back, because that was
Yeah. I was, but like, and I love it. Do you? I love to see him turn up. I just would always tell him, man, listen, you got to understand the optics that come along with certain anecdotes that you do. As long as you understand that that's what you want, and as long as you understand, like Odell didn't come into the like it's. You got to
I just
understand.
don't want there to be an issue with certain players being themselves, okay? But then when, there's other, people being themselves, then it's cool. You know what I'm saying? Part of being who we are, particularly in the urban community, is who we are. Okay.
Right.
And then when I see other people, it's not a problem. They da, 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 da. Uh, there should not be an issue with him being himself as long as he's doing. And I'm not saying that you're not supposed to be mindful, and that there are not times to be demure, and that there are not times to be vigilant over the things that you're putting out. I've heard people who had an issue with his hat to the back, during the combine interview, and what he was portraying, and things like that. If the man is delivering on Sunday, I really don't want to hear it. And just like I definitely don't have a problem with Lamar and his hair and what have you. Be yourself. You should
Right.
be allowed to fully express yourself, not just in the NFL in any way, just in terms of obviously that is within certain things that obviously
Prime example.
have been
Prime example.
overboard. But what I'm saying is that that should not be taking away from how you evaluate the player in terms of whether you're going to end up taking them or not. What were you about to say?
I'm glad you mentioned Lamar Jackson because we understand Lamar Jackson in all of the things he stood on for, optics, everything. It was a different feel. That's all. And we understand that. And that's not a debate or fight. And that's not saying that nobody's
What
right
was
or
the different
wrong.
feel? What was the different feel? What was the different feel?
What
You said,
he stood on meekness. Like you remember when he first came in and came out? It was a different type. Like I think Cam Ward, I believe, has more like crap talking and all kind of stuff in him. But he don't necessarily feel the need to put it out to the media. Josina, as an athlete, you know how many conversations happen in the locker room that nobody talks about in the media because we understand the optics. So when you have a player that's willing to stand on
okay,
the optics,
I will give you
what
your
it
point.
does to what it does upstairs to those cats is makes them say,
I'll give you
that's
your
all.
point. I'll give you your point. I do understand what you're saying. Sometimes I just be debating. Let me understand. Sometimes I'm just being me. But see, you have to be able to discern that. But so I will separate that and say clinically, I do understand what you're saying. You know, my man, he'll say, Joe, there's a time and a place. There's a time and a place for everything. You know what I'm saying? And I do get that, and I do understand, what that means. What I'm just saying is there's still a part of me that doesn't like when it feels like in instances that certain players can, be themselves more, and it's cool, but when it's in a different sect of players, SECT of players, that they have less license to be themselves. That's when I have an issue. I don't like that. And so yes, there is a gentle surfing to that you have to be able to feel when the times that you should do that, and you should be able to do that, and then when you have to pull it back. There are times to have sneakers in the boardroom, and there are times to bring out your cognac polish, pointy toe alligators, whatever they are. I get that there is a time and place. I just don't like when I feel like certain players are inhibited more based off some having more license than others, because there's this other unspoken vibe that certain players, particularly of the African American realm, need to be more reined in. And furthermore, on that point, I do not like when it feels like, because there's certain players that just have that it factor, have that magnetism, have that juju. And yes, and saw some people in my comments talking about, oh, she's talking about everything beyond his football talent. That is a given. I'm talking about the other things that add the sauce onto the sauce, right? And and sometimes it's not even the sauce, right? It's whether you're outspoken, like myself, whether you're independent or whatever it is. I don't like this hovering energy, whether it's myself, whether it's a player who or individual artist, whoever it is. When you have that certain energy, and there's people out there just want to cut it down, just to cut it down. Because I know what that feels like. Just want to cut you down just for the sake, because just to cut you down, just to show that we could just cut you down.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I'm
and
not a fan
and
of
of
that.
course I don't like that energy, because I was a part of that fabric. Okay, so I know what that is. So when I see it and I identify it, still objectively, just because I identify it doesn't mean I'm losing those eyes. Because if you're doing wrong, you're doing wrong. If you're doing good, you're doing good. But let's not act like we don't know that that's there. You know why I know that's there? Because I literally heard it about 6 times this morning. And I literally had to say, that's not their job. Their job is not to humble Shedeur. Their job is to field a football team of 53 players that can win on Sunday and take care of business. Because a quarter of y'all at the end of the season ain't even going to be there making decisions by December, or excuse me, January next year. Because every year is about what, a quarter of them.
I
Okay.
agree.
All
I
right.
agree with you. So
All right.
here's the thing though,
All right.
when you agree, Josina,
Mm.
I agree, but it doesn't change what you deal with. Like, it doesn't matter what you feel like. It's a matter of what's happening. And what's
Mm-hmm.
happening is until you are in a powerful position to to make that difference until your leverage is right. All people, I don't care about the color of your skin. All people
People.
have to answer to somebody until they are that somebody.
Mm. Oh, everybody has bosses, and trust me, I understand leverage. Because don't get it twisted. You know, sometimes when I'm talking in my colloquial terms and da 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 da, da, I am intelligent. Make no
Oh, see,
mistake.
I
And
know
so,
you
and I
are
under
because I
and
know you.
even one of my good sources, okay, very powerful person, okay, and I don't know if he's watching. Maybe he is, probably not. But even he says to me, Josina, you know what? You good at what you do. You are good at what you do. I reckon I feel like I'm the best female cover in the NFL, but that's me. You know what I'm saying? Damn sure the first to do what I did at ESPN and CBS, but whatever. But what he will say is that, Joe, you know what you still got to be mastering and understanding, or what you have to master and understand, is that there is a game above the game. You know,
Positive.
there's the chess above the chess. And so I understand your point in terms of having to be mindful of that when you talk about knowing your leverage and knowing the timing, and there's a time and a place and all of these things that we hear. So I'm with you on that. I understand that, and I appreciate that. You say he has to have the leverage. All I'm saying is that I'm also paying attention to my eyes.
Yeah,
And I don't sit up there and watch a whole bunch of college football. I watch what I need to watch, and I get my I feel that I do have the gift of discernment, but that's just me. It
yeah,
lends into what I'm doing as an insider. And all I know is I see what I see when he plays. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have room to grow. I also seen what I saw I stood there. I was in the room during the combine presser. I watched how he answered those questions. And not once did it say to me, geez, well, he ain't gonna be this because his hat is backwards. Matt, I was actually paying attention to what you should have been paying attention
yeah.
to, was how he handled each person of the media, regardless of whether he recognized them or not, how he made sure to make sure everybody felt important, that he was talking to. And that is just it, and it's not anything that's taught. It was just organic in how that was happening. And I'm not saying that these are just the only signs that you pay attention to when it comes to having to evaluate actual football metrics and evaluating a player. What I am saying is that there's sometimes that there are signs in even those things that people miss, and that's why they miss, because they don't have that discernment. And I would gather that there is more that actually comes into who you actually pick when it comes to as a football player, particularly a quarterback. Jalen Hurts has all of those qualities. You see what I'm saying? Does he have the biggest arm? Does he have the this, that, and the third? But he has the right
Got a
measure
great
of
QB
this,
sneak.
that, and this, and that, and this, that brings that whole gubernatorial aura that he gives, that made him the right person
Yes.
for exactly what that team has. And I didn't love your point before we came on, because you know what you were saying. Well, he has this defense, and he has this. That is the point, Rashad. You are supposed to have a good team. Do
So
not
you,
take away from Jalen Hurts because of the players that you are supposed. He is not supposed to be out
yeah,
there with Julie Junebug at Walmart and Charlie Chuck from 7-Eleven. You are supposed to be out there with good players.
yeah. He ain't supposed to be like Josh Allen was carrying a team. Is that what you're trying to say? Because
What
he's
I'm
not
saying
that
is, I
kind of
heard you
guy.
taking away
So
from
that's the only thing
Jalen.
I'm saying, Josine, is when we talk about Jalen Hurts, I think he's a good quarterback, but let's not put him in on somebody that's carrying the team. That's all. He's playing his role like he should. He's a winner. He's good dude. All these things. Again, I do not want to sit up here and compare LeBron to Jordan, because it seems like you hate when you try to compare those things. All I'm saying is he's a good quarterback. I like the kid. I cheer for the kid. I want the kid to win. When we talk about the Eagles as a team, come here May when they're petitioning for the push tush to get banned, I don't know what kind of team they're going to be when one play you have a 78% success rate. And when you do it twice, meaning on the fourth down, you have a 97% success rate. I don't know any. I've never played in my life with a offensive coordinator that they have to think about what play to call when it's third down and 2 or fourth down and 1. I've never in my life seen it. What I'm saying is, I don't know what kind of team that's going to be if they get rid of this play.
So I want to go back to the point with Dion because I don't like the feeling of anybody who, having an issue potentially with his dad and passing that on, to Shador. I don't like that. I don't like hearing it. Shador,
Does it make sense though?
what?
Does it make sense? That'll be a good question.
What makes sense?
You said you don't like it, which I'm here for that. Does it make sense how people get there?
No, because
Okay,
they're
that's
not
fair.
drafting because Dion is not going to be on the field. And let's not also not recognize and if even if you are, let me break this down a little bit further. Even if you want to bring that into the equation, that means that you also have to bring into the equation all of the good things, right? That Dion is in terms of the impact that he's been on Travis, who went to the Jaguars, and Shador. It's the same coach.
Same coach.
It's the same coach. It's the same coach. So all of the points that you're bringing up, for all the concern that you have for if he's gonna, be there or what have you, or who's gonna be his coach after, but who was his coach there, and then now he's gonna have a different coach. Y'all not talking
Well,
about Jacksonville Jaguars and Travis Hunter.
to explain that why though, I think I might have lost you. I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. The reason why that is, just so it's understood, is that Travis Hunter's biggest attribute has nothing to do with him being a winner. That's why. His biggest attribute is he's the best player on the football field, no matter which side of the ball. Travis Hunter is beyond that. When we talk about Shador, one of his biggest attributes is a winner. Well, how do we attribute him winning? Well, his dad is always right there. No,
All
shouldn't
I
forget.
know
I
is
don't.
that
I
the
don't want that much.
person
Not that his dad is
passing the
always there.
ball
Let me
to
separate.
Travis Hunter
Deion
when he
Sanders
was
has been the
stretched
head
out
coach for
like
every
this,
team
when
he's
he was
played for.
and making all these spectacular plays, who was passing him the ball? Did he
So,
pass it to himself? Was it
absolutely
Giselle
not.
Bundchen
He was throwing
passing
that
it to
thing.
himself? Like she said, Tom Brady can't pass the ball.
He was slinging that
Was
thing.
it Shador out there passing the ball to him?
Hell yeah, Shador was out there
Okay.
dropping dimes.
Oh, dimes. It was dimes, right? So it wasn't like
Yeah,
Travis was over here and Shador was passing the ball over here, and then Travis Hunter had to walk over here and go get the ball. It was going to where Travis Hunter was, right?
yeah. He was
Okay.
putting
I
on the
just want to
money.
make sure I'm seeing the same thing. Okay.
Yeah. He was definitely putting the ball on the money. No doubt
Okay.
about
All
that.
right.
Like the kid is a baller. I mean,
Okay.
I
Okay. Okay.
you've
Okay.
never heard me say one thing about can the
All
kid
right.
play in the NFL? No, he's a baller. He should be in the league. He's gonna have a chance to start. That is straight
Okay.
up. Yeah, and I think he can have a good rookie season. All I'm saying is we're talking about, remember, we're coming in third overall. No way. Not when you have Abdul Carter sitting right there. That's no team's doing that.
Okay.
No. There's a
I'm
reason
not
why the
telling you
Browns
what I gotta
said,
do. I'm just saying okay. I'm just saying
oh,
okay. I'm
what you
just saying.
mentioned. Now I hope he do as well. I hope he does his thing. All
Listen,
that.
listen, we want all people to succeed. We want, I want to see everybody's success and what have you. I'm just saying that we have a very talented player that had to watch the entire first round go by, even after all of the things that were accomplished at these different programs, and watch, all of these teams say, nah, no, thank you in the first round. So, we're
Hey, I definitely don't want to compare these two at all because it's not. So I'll
compare
just put
what
that
to
out there.
compare
No,
what to.
definitely because I can't compare the two. I'm just thinking back to there was a play, and I'm reluctant to say this just because he hasn't panned out yet.
Who?
But we've seen talented kids. You've heard out of Liberty University, near and dear to my heart. Malik Willis. He sat there, was the first overall quarterback, and waited. Didn't get drafted until what was he, third?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I don't think the
And he was putting
magnitude
the
of the
ball
comparison is
everywhere.
in line. No, I just don't think the magnitude of the comparison is in line. But let's put a bow in this conversation. At the end of the day, New York Giants, going with Abdul at 3, going with Jackson Dart coming back in the first round for him. We're all gonna see. Okay. And then you got Russell Wilson there and saying he's gonna start, and Russell has a lot to prove and I do think he has some left in the tank, but I also know that the Steelers were very, just had, concerns based on what they were seeing from my sources, not from what I feel, from what I'm, was being told. And that's why it was so clear and understood, at least from what I already knew, that, they were not going to be bringing him back, even to the point where they put themselves in a corner. Because strategically, that's not necessarily the smartest move. And think about that for a second. The Steelers were willing to let Russell go and put themselves in a position that they're in right now. Still waiting. And my understanding is that they did reach out. I don't know if they did it via text, via email, but there was some communication there to Aaron to say, hey, bro, we would like to know what you're going to do. And I actually don't know what the outcome of that was, but I know that they did do the reach out. And I know that the Steelers still did not pick a quarterback in the first. But hey, I don't believe that that's the best fit for Shedeur, so I'm not looking for it anyways, at least that, whatever. But, all I'm saying is that's a very interesting and curious thing, given that the Steelers just came off of having him on their team. I didn't got no problem with Russell. Hey, I wish that you would have got your second Super Bowl ring. I know that you got the magic. I at the times, especially in the LOB days in the Seattle, I've seen that or what have you. But obviously there's still a lot to be seen as a member of the Giants. And let me be clear, I have said many times about Jameis Winston that I feel like he has more, and that these teams do need to do a better evaluation, not just talking about how he ended the season with the Browns and how the interceptions went up towards the end of the season, with the season that he had with Sean Payton when they were 5-2 and he had his best interception percentage rate, meaning it was low in terms of a career low under Sean Payton, and how well he was playing underneath that. Because I've asked Sean multiple times, identify exactly what it is that you identify with Jameis, because that's what teams need to be copying instead of trying to do whatever they do, and I think that Giants need to also, beyond that, let me just say this, give a fair shot to Jameis too, because you're worrying about who's the best, for the company pamphlet, instead of just remembering that it's sport and having a competition. So, and I actually applaud Joe, because I do think that, making sure that he was covered there. All I'm saying is, my point is that the overall point is, the objective is to get the quarterback for your franchise for the future. And we're going to see if the moves that were made yesterday and in conjunction with moves before are the moves. Are they the moves? Because we are certainly going to come back down to it and see, especially with the amount of eyes and the controversy around that pick. And as far as the Saints, I feel like that is the best situation for him, in my opinion. That's the best pairing. I want to see it come down a couple notches in the glare. I like Kellen's demeanor. I think it's a good personality match. And let me be clear too, I didn't hear anybody complain about Shedeur's character. People going on today, because I was like, have you seen any sketch? Like, what are y'all? And
Seemed like a
some
great
people
kid.
made sure to say, no, it's personality. Personality what? Personality what? Please.
Love his personality.
Huh?
He want to win. Love his personality.
You got a parting take, because I got one more comment after your comment, and mine is going to be short after that. What any parting takes?
Yeah. So just to wrap up, Giants made a great decision, 3rd overall. Who they wanted to select as for their quarterback. They see something that we don't have the ability to see all the time. Wish them well. Wish Shedeur the best. I don't question his character. I don't question his work ethic. None of these type of things. Anecdotes. The guy's gonna get in and play. I just didn't think he should have been 3rd overall. That's it.
Well, in the infamous words of the great philosopher Odell Beckham Jr.
My God.
You know what he would say? You know what Odell would say? Just like I ended, Pat Leonard knows this, how I ended my show last time. You know what he would say? We gonna see. We gonna see. And I think that it should also be put to the tune of a Negro spiritual, So you know what I'm gonna say? We gon' see. We gon' see.
He stands alone on this one, y'all.
We gon' see. Something just tell me we gon' see. Hey, look, for Rashad Jennings, I appreciate you getting up on the West Coast and popping up on the exhibit for your girl. You know I'm the host of the exhibit, Josine Anderson. Make sure you tune into my YouTube channel at The Exhibit Concept and also my website, www.theexhibitconcept.com. I said we were going to be out in under an hour, and we are going to be out. I appreciate y'all. Bye. And look, now I can't find the end stream button. All right, there we go. Boom.
Nice.